This is TLV1.
TLV1 radio.
Great mixer.
I like television.
This is TLV1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis live. That's your host, me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. This is Louis Live, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. from the Holy Land and noon on the East Coast. We have a jam-packed show. We're going to talk about all sports pretty much played under the sun. AJ Mitnick at half past the hour to talk about David Blatt, where is he going to coach in the NBA. Also recap of Maccabi Tel Aviv's victory over Maccabi Haifa. Brad Horn, Vice President of Communication for Baseball Hall of Fame, talk about a fantastic exhibit regarding Israel baseball. Lorrie Brownstone, the great Amy Lawrence in about 15 minutes. But on the line right now, a member of Israel's national soccer team to talk about the World Cup, Diana Redman. Diana, welcome back to the program.
Hi, how are you?
Doing wonderful, and it's great to have you on. Really couldn't think of too many people, obviously more expert in the world of soccer than you to come on and talk about the World Cup. Let's talk about some of the games played yesterday. United States gets a big win over Ghana, 2-1. They get 3 points. And now their chances look pretty good of moving on to the next round.
Yeah, first of all, that was an incredible game. Usually I'm not a huge fan of the U.S. national team, but for some reason this year I have the fever. And after that first goal, I was stunned by Dempsey. And, you know, I told everybody, I said, put Dempsey in your top 11. I said, I don't know, I feel it this year. Well, so after that first goal, everybody was kind of floored and just like, oh, shit.
Well, I find
something has changed in the U.S. team.
Well, I'm intrigued. Why is it that you usually don't like the U.S. national team?
Well, people don't like them. I don't know. They have something this year. Things are kind of coming together. You know, they have an interesting, in the next couple of years, what's going to be developing. They have, you know, kind of an influx now of German-American players that are coming. So the style is changing a little bit. You know, John Brooks, who scored the second goal, he's one of the, I think, 5 German-Americans on the team. So things are changing a bit for the U.S., and it looks good, even though Donovan was left out, which left a lot of people here bitter in the U.S. And it might also be that I'm living in the U.S. right now, so maybe that's why I'm kind of excited.
Right, at this moment, right. Now, let's do the segue into Germany. Since you talk about German Americans, they get a big win 4-0 over Portugal, and I kind of felt a lot of people overlooked Germany. Argentina usually is the favorite to most people. Is Germany somewhat the sleeper, the dark horse in this tournament?
Well, I think Germany's always a strong team no matter what. Even when they're weak, Germany still manages to come out and be a strong team. You know, I think with Portugal, a lot of times, you know, because there's Ronaldo and, you know, even Nani. But I think in general, Portugal kind of has a problem showing up, and we saw it when they even played Israel. You know, even in the qualifier, they were there, but, you know, I think, you know, even when they have Pepe, who's such a liability on that team, as we saw with, I don't even know what minute he went out, but no, you think to yourself, come on, man. Like, did you really have to do that in the World Cup?
Right, it's the World Cup. It's only once every 4 years. 1 billion people are watching. Now, on Sunday, France beat Honduras 3-0. Were you surprised that France was that dominant so early?
I actually wasn't. I think after seeing, you know, even when Israel played Honduras, just seeing what kind of team it was, I didn't think France was going to have an issue at all. That was actually one of the games I was least interested, I'd say, of all the games.
And so that wasn't a surprise, but what games are there that have been a surprise to you so far since the World Cup began on Thursday?
Definitely Uruguay and Costa Rica. That was kind of obviously Spain and Netherlands was kind of an ass whipping for Spain. But even just Uruguay and Costa Rica, Uruguay was really a bit disappointing, and Cavani was kind of nowhere to be found on the field a bit, even though you know, they did have that penalty. But overall, it was kind of a big surprise. And it's a great win for Costa Rica, though. And
since Israel's not in the World Cup, is there a team Israelis should root for and try to hope they win?
You know what? Maybe the USA.
Okay.
That could be nice. You know, I hear differently from all Israelis. There's a lot of Israelis that love the Netherlands. You know, Spain's always a favorite, but now after that last game, people are kind of being a little bit quiet. So we'll see going forward. There's still a lot of great games. Belgium still has to play today. That's going to be a great game against Algeria. So it's really a great World Cup so far. A lot of goals, which is great.
And before we get your predictions for today's games, one more game I want to talk about, which occurred Sunday. Argentina gets the win 2-1 over Bosnia. They're in the Group F. I mean, a lot of people like Argentina to win the whole thing. Did you look at that game and thought you're a little skeptical now because they won 2-1, when a lot of people thought they would have won by a bigger margin?
Yeah, they thought it would be a bigger margin, but Bosnia, they do have a strong team, a strong defense. So it wasn't so surprising that it took them a little bit to get on the board. I did think the goal difference would be a little bit more. But, they're not a team to kind of sneeze at Bosnia and Herzegovina. So.
All right, we're speaking with Diana Redman, member of the Israel national soccer team, talking about the World Cup. And we got 3 games today, 2 in Group H and 1 in Group A. First, going to Group A, you mentioned we're talking about Brazil and Mexico. They're going to be playing against each other. Who do you like in that matchup?
Man, I love the Mexican goalkeeper, Ochoa. I love him as a goalkeeper. So I'm kind of rooting for Mexico, but everyone's got their money on Brazil, but it's actually going to be a really great game. Mexico really surprises people, especially in the World Cup.
And it'll be very interesting because Brazil has a win already. They got the first win on Thursday, 3-1 over Croatia, and it's in Brazil. You played in big competitive games where there's a home field advantage. How much will that be a home field advantage for Brazil that they're playing the World Cup there?
Oh, it's going to be incredible for them. It's no contest, especially when it's Brazil of all places. Maybe if it was another country, it'd be a little bit different. But I mean, you heard in the first game, just even watching it on TV, you could hear the crowd and just how much support there was. So they're going to have an incredible advantage. But I'm still rooting a little bit for Mexico. So see what happens.
And whatever it's worth, I mean, France in 1998, it was in France. They won the World Cup. That was an advantage for them. So we'll see if it turns out to be an advantage for Brazil. That could take them to the championship of the World Cup. The 2 other games, Group H, kind of the less sexier teams, but nevertheless, I want to get your predictions. You have Russia versus South Korea. Who do you like in that matchup?
Russia's not as strong as they have been in the past. I don't know if it's not Russian soccer in general. We see this on the women's side as well. The women have kind of just tapered off a little bit. I haven't seen too much of Korean Republic, so off the top of my head, I'm a little stumped with this one. I'm leaning a little bit towards Russia, just because they have a bit more experience, but.
All right, we'll switch it out for Russia. We'll see what happens. And then the other game in Group H, Belgium and Algeria. Who do you like in that matchup?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Belgium. Company is one of my favorite players. They have one of the best goalkeepers right now. They have Hazard, so it's going to be a really great game. This is what I'm really looking forward to today, actually.
Speak with Diana Redman, member of the Israel national soccer team. We just broke down some of the games that occurred in the World Cup and the matchups going on tonight. But, of course, we want to talk about something that to me is more important than the World Cup, Israel versus Switzerland. That happened a couple of days ago. Give us a recap.
Not one of the best meetings for Israel. I had 2 of our players got red cards. 2 other players got their second yellows. One girl broke her collarbone. I got a bit sick. I had to leave the game. So it was like the perfect storm for us. Flying the day before the game didn't help as well. But sometimes this is how it goes in women's soccer. And I think in our group it was more important for. We know that Switzerland is going on to the next past the group stage. They've already done that based on their win with us. So for us, it's looking forward to games like Serbia and Iceland, Denmark in the future for just getting the points there.
See,
rather than staying focused on Switzerland.
See, folks, I want people to listen to that. It's funny, Dinah, you said you got a little sick. You had to go back to the United States for a surgery and still came on this show and act like it wasn't a big deal. Most guests would be like, I'm having surgery. Sorry, I'm not coming on tonight. And you're here right now. So that's not a little sick. You had to fly back for surgery. It's just one of those things where you're tough as nails. That's why you say it's a little thin. But we certainly appreciate coming out. Sorry that things did not go so well for Israel against Switzerland, but these things do happen. And I guess maybe next time you guys could fly in earlier, then you could be in studio for my show. See, it'll work out that way. I'll give you some. I'll give you some of the Louis like karma, like they have Jim Rohn karma. This will be Louis live karma.
We have a bit of a break now, but we will have a game against Serbia in August. So that's going to be our next big matchup. The girls do have a game this Thursday against Denmark. I obviously won't be there to play. this next game, but I will be there for the Serbia game. So looking forward to that.
All right. And last question before we let you go. Back to the World Cup. At the end of the day, your pick to win the whole thing.
Ooh, I have not been able to settle yet. I have a dream of the U.S. kind of sneaking in there. I don't think they'll win, but I'd like to have them sneak into somewhere far. I mean, Brazil is an obvious favorite, especially in this World Cup. Germany, in my opinion, is still looking really strong, even though it was a 4-0 win against Portugal. They're still kind of one of my favorites. And even the Netherlands, we'll see what they do. I think their game against Spain was a lot of revenge. So we'll see how the next games go in the bracket, and then I can kind of assess where they're at.
All right, that was kind of like a Jewish answer. I mean, no offense, but it's one of the things. All right, so you'll have to come on again, and then give us your pick. Maybe we'll do that the week of the championship, something like that. But my two picks are Brazil and Argentina, and I'm leaning towards Brazil because it's in Brazil. I think that is a big advantage, as we discussed.
Yeah.
Diana, thank you so much. Wonderful as always. Great to have you here on Louis Live on TLV1, and feel better after being, quote, a little sick.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, be well. Diana Redman, boys and girls, quick break. On the other side, the great Amy Lawrence from CBS Sports break down the NBA Finals. Why was this matchup only 5 games? It really could have been a sweep. We'll talk about that with Amy after this. This is Louis Live on TLV1. All right, back here on Lewis Live, and that great music courtesy of Tomer Gershman, who makes all the music for all my shows. Shout out to Tomer for doing all that. Of course, Udi is producing with me tonight. And a couple of programming notes. So we're going to have some great shows coming up. We're going to have Andy May coming on next week. He's a legendary Israeli tennis player, so he'll come on the program. Of course, a lot of great tennis going on in the world. We'll get the Israeli side. We'll see what Andy's up to. Rumors about Andy retiring in the next few months. And also coming up in the next few weeks, we'll have to catch up with Brad Greenberg. Hapoel Yerushalayim had a great season. This was Brad's first year as coach in Yerushalayim after winning the championship with Maccabi Haifa last year. And on that note, again, thanks to Andrew Wilson, who came out last week. I know his team lost in overtime by a point, but obviously appreciate any time that Andrew can come on. We'll take a quick break, and on the other side from CBS Sports, the great Amy Lawrence. This is Lewis Live on TLV1. Back here on TLV1, you know, folks, I've done a lot of great interviews with a lot of great people. Pete Rose, Roy Jones Jr., Kurt Schilling, on and on and on. There's only a few that I call great, and that is my next guest from CBS Sports, a fan who's helped me out with my career. Really, really appreciate it. On the line right now from CBS Sports, Amy Lawrence. Amy, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much. What an intro. I appreciate that.
Well, of course, and it's tradition that you come on every year during the NBA Finals, or this time when it's over. We've had a couple of more competitive series the past few years. This was really short. 5 games, could have been a sweep, and Parker made some free throws in Game 2. Any one particular reason why the series was not that close?
Well, the Spurs are just better. The San Antonio Spurs had been motivated, of course, all year long by what happened last year, being 28 seconds away from winning the title, and the fact that they were denied and Miami came back and stole that victory from the jaws of defeat. So
right.
Motivation is powerful for sure, but they obviously had gotten deeper with the addition of Patty Mills, with the way that Boris Diaw emerged as not just a potential starter, but a point forward almost who could really score and distribute. He's a great passer. They also had Thiago Splitter, who turned into an impact player. Now, Thiago didn't do as much in the finals, but did a lot to get them there to that point. And then Manu Ginobili being not inconsistent, but instead being the Manu Ginobili, the future Hall of Famer that people had come to expect. He didn't play summer ball last year. He didn't play for his national team in Argentina. And so instead he took an extra 2 months off. And he really was able to pick things up where Tony Parker was banged up. And Tim Duncan, obviously, still capable of double-doubles. Danny Green had some great shooting nights. And then Kawhi Leonard, the NBA Finals MVP, who was only in his 3rd postseason, but really was coming into his own and learning how to be assertive and aggressive. And they just got deeper, and they got better, and they knew exactly what it was going to take to win. And I don't think anybody's surprised that the San Antonio Spurs are champs, but I do think that a lot of people are shocked that it was 3 straight blowouts, because typically we don't see that against Miami. But, you know, the Heat went the other way. So while San Antonio was getting more experienced and getting stronger and deeper, Miami was limping to the finish line. I mean, LeBron James and Chris Bosh are fine, but Chris Anderson, Dwayne Wade, Udonis Haslem, Ray Allen, they're all older. So
right.
what everyone says about San Antonio, that actually applies to Miami. And then Mario Chalmers was really a no-show in the postseason, which hurt them as well.
And, of course, people talk about San Antonio's age, but actually Miami is the oldest team in the league when you combine everyone's ages. Now, for some reason, even though Spurs won, a lot of the attention was on what happens to Miami now, which makes sense because they have the best player in the world, LeBron James. He's a free agent. What do you think's going to happen? What's your gut feeling on that?
He's not a free agent yet. He has to. Those 3 guys, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James, have it built into their contracts that they can opt out of their contract after the season and after next season. Their contracts actually run till 2016, I believe, but they do have opt-out contracts, just like Chris Anderson does. He has already said, Birdman has already said he will opt out. Ray Allen's considering retirement. We know that Shane Battier is retiring. Udonis Haslem has a player option. Mario Chalmers is a free agent. Depending on what those big 3 do, you're talking about maybe only having 1 guy under contract. That's Norris Cole. And so I tend to believe, in fact, I believe very strongly that LeBron James isn't going anywhere. He has everything that he possibly wants in Miami. He's got teammates that he really likes. He's got a coach he gets along with who actually has his respect, even though he is the best player in the world. He has a GM or president of basketball operations, Pat Riley, who is a proven winner. He's a Hall of Famer. He's built winners everywhere he's gone, not only as a coach, but as a front office guy. And then in addition to that, he's got a track record. I mean, that's a free agent destination in Miami, and Pat Riley has flexibility. If those 3 guys opt out, or even 2 of them opt out, and maybe restructure or take pay cuts, which they said they'd be willing to do, you're talking about being able to get in some bigger name free agents to retool and reload. They're not in a rebuilding process. I mean, the East is getting better, but the Heat are still the champs of that conference and still the team to be reckoned with.
And they won the East 4 years in a row. That should be mentioned. The first team since Larry Bird's Celtics in the 80s. Of course, you know something about that, to go to 4 finals in a row. So that should be noted. What big free agents could you see potentially going to Miami?
You know, it's really interesting. Someone brought this up on my show yesterday. Patty Mills is a free agent, and as a point guard, he proved himself in the postseason and during the regular season for San Antonio because Tony Parker missed a bunch of games, missed time with injury, and over we saw Patty Mills take over in the fourth quarter. The Spurs don't want Manu Ginobili playing point all during the regular season. They're trying to protect him and his minutes too, and so they need a backup point guard, but sounds like they have Corey Joseph, and during the regular season they'd like to bring him along. Patty Mills has earned himself some money the way that he played on the big stage in the playoffs, and so there's some talk that maybe Patty Mills could be a fit there in Miami. They desperately need a point guard. They need a point guard. They need some shooters. We'll see what happens. They obviously are small in the middle. I don't believe for a second to talk about Carmelo Anthony because there's not enough shots to go around. Sometimes Chris Bosh doesn't even have enough shots to take. So I don't believe that one, but I do believe that there are a lot of free agents in this league that would be happy to go play with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and to be challenging for titles.
And now going back to the team that actually won, it's funny how I talk about the Heat, but, the Spurs are the champions, and what happens with Mr. Duncan? He's been in the league since 1997, but he still played very significantly, had a great season. What happens with him in the next couple of years?
Well, I think you can only take it a year at a time once you get to be 38, which is what he is. He'll be 39 next year. Funny, makes it sound so old, like we're talking about his death warrant. But in basketball years, obviously, at this point, same thing as Ray Allen. You decide year by year if your body can continue to take the pounding, and if you want to go through all the mental rigors of what it takes to be ready to play at that level. And he's not the kind of guy who ever wants to hang on too long. So he won't be a Brett Favre. That won't happen. But by all indications, now, there's some differing views on this, including an insider in San Antonio who told me yesterday that he believes Tim Duncan would rather ride off into the sunset as a champ than to come back. But according to Tim Duncan, he has said he still has the desire to play. He obviously still has the ability to play. And in his post-game comments after they won the championship, he mentioned, I'm just going to ride Kawhi Leonard's coattails to another couple titles. So it doesn't sound like he is retiring yet. I don't think he and Greg Popovich will ever split up. They're like an old married couple, which means that the two of them will likely go out together. Greg Popovich has said that he's not retiring, before Tim does, as long as Tim's in the league, he's there. He obviously is closing in. He would be going into his 19th year as the head coach, which is the longest tenured head coach in any of the four major U.S. Pro sports. I don't think that roster changes a whole lot outside of maybe Patty Mills. I believe they'll be committed to Boris Diaw enough to give him a free agent deal that he deserves, maybe Patty as well. But I don't think that roster changes at all, much at all. I certainly don't think that any of the top players are gone or retire. But that's just my opinion.
Wow, great stuff. I'm sorry this segment is so short. In the past, I like to have you on 27 minutes, but we have to talk about the Israeli basketball coming up that occurred last week. Thank you so much, Amy. Always a pleasure, and we appreciate you being on Louis Live on TLV1.
Absolutely, Ari. Have fun.
Thank you. Be well. The great Amy Lawrence, everybody. Always a pleasure. Really honored that she comes on the show. Quick break. On the other side, we're going to have on the assistant coach of Rishon Lezion to talk about David Blatt and get a recap of the Israeli championship. This is Louis, that is AJ Mitnick. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Great segment we just had with Amy Lawrence from CBS Sports. We're to continue the good times. On the line right now, editor at Sheridan Hoops and the assistant coach at Maccabi Rishon Lezion, AJ Mitnick. AJ, welcome back to the program.
What's going on, Ari? How you doing?
Hey, doing great. So we'll talk about David Blatt in a few minutes, but let's get a recap of the championship last week. Sensational finale. Maccabi Tel Aviv wins on the road in Haifa by 4 points, so Haifa has to then win by 5, and they win by 4, goes to overtime, then Maccabi Tel Aviv prevails. Let's talk about first for the losing team, because he had such a great game, Donta Smith, and had a great season. So talk about his effort in the losing cause.
Well, first of all, you could see, especially in the finals, that Donta Smith is an incredible player, easily the best player in the Israeli league the last 2 years. A lot of Israeli basketball coaches like to say, obviously to compare him to LeBron James is a big stretch. In Israel, let's say his impact on the game is very similar to LeBron in that he's basically a triple-double threat every night. On post-ups, nobody can handle him one-on-one. And, I'm sure you saw the game, that at the end of the game, in overtime in the championship, they went to him on a post-up, and Alex Tyus really made an incredible block to win the championship. That was one of the most incredible plays I've seen in my time in Israeli basketball.
Now, and that's what sealed the deal for Maccabi Tel Aviv, and for them, they have a European championship, an Israeli championship the same year. This is arguably their finest year since there's been basketball in Israel, correct?
You really got to tip your hat to them. They made it to 2 championships, 3 if you count the cup, and twice the game went into overtime, and really that shows the character of a team. If 2 times you go to overtime in the championship and they're able to pull out close games, really, kol hakavod to them. That's an amazing accomplishment.
And before we continue with Coach David Blatt and where he's going to go, one more thing about Smith. Last year, the MVP of the league, also for Maccabi Haifa, Gal Mikel, went to the NBA. What are the chances of Smith going to the NBA as he's this year's MVP of the Israeli League?
It sounds to me, just from hearing talks around European basketball, it seems like Maccabi's going to make him a big offer. And I also have been hearing rumblings that in Russia, Kazan is thinking about offering him an offer around $1 million a year. So,
wow.
I feel like for the NBA, I don't know if there's so many teams that will give him a guaranteed contract that'll draw him away from being in Europe. And also, he's the type of player that, unless he has the ball in his hands, he's a much less effective player. So I don't know if there's really an NBA team that's willing to bring him in and bring him to be a focal point of the team. So if you ask me, I think he's going to be back in Europe, but there's no question ability-wise he's at the level for the NBA, even to be a pretty good player in the NBA.
Speak with AJ Mitnick here on Louis Live on TLV1. Now, the juicy current story. David Blatt's going to go to the NBA. Question is where? And there's a lot of different options. And one is the Warriors. Could be Steve Kerr's assistant. Now, you were on this program and said he shouldn't take an assistant job. What are your thoughts now, though, if that is the option that's out there?
Well, listening to David speak in the press conferences and also just looking at the opportunities, to be an assistant coach for Steve Kerr, who, despite all of his experience in the NBA as both a player and as an executive, he's never been a head coach at any level. He's never coached a high school team. He's never coached a college team, especially an NBA team. And to have a guy like David Blatt, who's been coaching for the better part of more than 30 years, to have him as your first assistant, for Blatt, that's a great job because basically Kerr's going to need to rely on him to be able to get through the season. So for him to be put there, it's going to put him in a spot where everyone in the NBA market will know that he's essentially doing a job very similar as a head coach. And I think for him, it's a great way, not only, we talk all the time about players needing to adjust going overseas or players needing to adjust going to the NBA. There's also an adjustment for coaches. And I think for David, this would be a great opportunity, assuming that he doesn't get the head coaching job in Cleveland, which he's scheduled to interview for tomorrow, I believe.
What would, the Cleveland situation, they have Kylie Irving. I don't know if that's such a ideal situation, but it could be for a new coach of the NBA. But give us your details, your thoughts about Coach Blatt coaching in Cleveland, if that is what happens.
First of all, it's a pretty good situation for most coaches because last year it was kind of a circus in Cleveland a little bit.
Right.
So being able to clean it up and at least doing a better job than last year is a good way to keep your job moving forward. They're the number 1 pick in the draft. They got most likely are going to take the kid from Kansas, Joel Embiid. And they have a nice core. They have nice young players. They have some cap room. There's talk that they're going to be in the mix for Kevin Love. There's a few people that are dreaming that if LeBron James opts out of his contract, that could be a possible destination for them. That Cleveland, if you search through the NBA market, it's one of the best jobs available right now. That I think any coach would be looking at that job as a serious, good option.
I mean, one way, right, as you talked about, since it was so bad last year, it can only go up, right? So any coach will look good if they take it over.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also one of those things I think they would like about Blatt there is if you watched Cleveland last year, a lot of their problem was being a little bit selfish, guys not really playing together. And if you look at Blatt's teams, it really was, not just this Maccabi team this year, also his teams in Russia, also his previous Maccabi teams, that typically he's a coach where the sun's going to shine on somebody else every day. So, a little bit like San Antonio this year where you see their top 9, 10 players, you don't know who's going to contribute every night, that I think they need a little bit more of a team-oriented approach. I think Blatt really can help them there, and they got a lot of young guys like Kyrie Irving, like you mentioned, Thompson, Deion Waiters, whoever they're going to end up drafting this year. That I think bringing a coach that has a very team-oriented approach instead of, having 1 or 2 guys that are your main contributors, I think would be good for them moving forward.
And last question, this is what I think. I think if Coach Blatt gets a head coaching position, it's a bigger deal than Omri Caspi making it to the NBA as the first Israeli player because this is the head guy. And he'll be not exactly the face of the franchise, but all these players will be going to him, listening to him. He'll be giving press conferences every night. What are your thoughts? Would that be a bigger deal than Omri Caspi as a player going to the NBA from Israel?
I mean, I think for Israel it'll be a very big deal. For the general scope of Europe, I don't think it's as big a deal because Mike D'Antoni, let's say, is the same type of situation as David Blatt, just being Italian, being an American that has an Italian passport, spent his entire career overseas, became a coach overseas, and then making the jump. So what David Blatt will be doing now, it's not exactly a groundbreaking move being the first European coach. It's not like it would be if, let's say, Obradovic became a coach in the NBA. But for Israeli basketball, I mean, it's the first time a Maccabi Tel Aviv coach will get the job as a head coach in the NBA. It'll be very interesting, and for sure it'll be very exciting for everyone here, no question.
All right, AJ, great analysis as always. Thank you for being on Louis Live on TLV1.
Take care, Ari. Thanks for having me.
All right, be well. And congratulations again to Maccabi Tel Aviv. Very hard-fought game, obviously winning in overtime. And special shout-out to Sean James, who has been on this program, and we're very happy that he was able to win, give a little jungle karma, Louis Live karma, as they say. Quick break. On the other side, Vice President of Communications and Education from the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, Brad Horn. Don't miss this segment. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live on TLV1, and of course you can follow the station on Twitter at TLV1.fm, and you can email me personally at arilouisshow@hotmail.com, ARILOUISSHOW@hotmail.com. A great couple segments so far. We're going to continue. On the line right now, the Vice President of Communications and Education for the Baseball Hall of Fame, Mr. Brad Horn. Brad, welcome to Louis Live on TLV1.
Good day. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Sure. I'm sure you don't get a phone call from Israel every day, right?
This is perhaps a first, yes.
First time for everything. And the reason why we're having you on is because I understand there is an exhibit in the Hall of Fame that includes items from Israel, the Israel Baseball League. Tell us a bit about that.
That is correct. We are a collections-based institution here at the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum. So while we feature a museum that features approximately 50,000 square feet dedicated to the telling of baseball history, we're also always interested in acquiring pieces that relate to the game not only domestically but around the world, and tell storylines that baseball's impact on society is larger than just wins and losses and hits and home runs. So earlier this year we had the opportunity to acquire on donation a bat that was used by Jamie Aymar, who played for the Miracle in 2007.
Sure.
And that bat, along with tickets from the Israel Baseball League, which was played in 2007, are a part of our collection. So it's a great way for the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum to add artifacts that can talk about baseball being played around the world. And though they're not presently on display at this point in time, they certainly may be in the future.
And how did the contact happen? Did you guys find out that baseball was going on in Israel, or someone contacted you? How did that initially happen?
Certainly. Well, as baseball historians, we're always attuned to what is transpiring around the world in terms of baseball. We certainly knew about the IBL that took place in 2007. But from our standpoint, the way that this request came to us is how artifacts come to us all the time here at the Baseball Hall of Fame. We actually have an accessions committee meeting today. Once a month, we review offers that come in from fans all around the world who have a treasured piece in their mind of baseball history. They want to offer it on donation to the Baseball Hall of Fame, as we take in everything on donation. We don't pay for any artifacts that come into our collection. Mm-hmm. And we review and decide if we want to keep the item or if we want to decline. And over the course of the year, we take in about 300 pieces, but we say no to probably 600 pieces.
Wow.
So it's not something that we take into warehouse items of baseball interest, but we do want to look for those stories that tell baseball and its impact on society, and we feel that the Israel Baseball League and the IBL's achievements of the one season, by having this offered to us, was an offer that was too good for us to pass up.
All right, now that's very kind, and you're very smart, because there's a lot of people listening that love Israel baseball. But technically what I want to know is, why was Israel so good to be in that 300 range and not in the 600 range? What was so special about them?
What the defining factor is that the accessions committee looks at are gap fillers. So if we're telling the story of baseball history, and 100 years from now, the IBL is played just 1 year in time, it's of great interest to historians, and to point to the fact that there was an Israel Baseball League in 2007. There were teams. It allows us to tell the story. If in 20 years Israel revives the Baseball League and baseball is played widespread, it allows us to trace an artifact back to the origins of the league in 2007. So really we look at the context of history, and that was a deciding factor for our team in choosing to accept the piece.
And tell us, are there other countries that send you pieces that you also accept? People from the Far East, other small countries maybe that we haven't thought of, that there is baseball going on there as well.
Absolutely. It is over the course of the year. The Far East is obviously very passionate about baseball. We get artifact requests from Japan, from Taiwan, but we really do look at the emerging nations of baseball and the places where baseball may be played uniquely to that culture as an area of interest. We don't necessarily go out and pursue the artifact request, but if it is offered, more often than not, we would say yes.
We're going to speak with Brad Horton, Vice President of Communications and Education at the Baseball Hall of Fame. And tell us, Baseball Hall of Fame is in Cooperstown. It's probably the most well-known Hall of Fame of all the sports in America. What is the annual attendance? How many people come to Cooperstown every year?
Actually, only about 300,000, and it's a large number, 300,000 visitors, particularly when you consider our location. We're 4 hours north of New York City. We are about an hour and a half from the closest airport that serves central New York. So we are a very rural destination, which does prohibit many people from visiting us because of the logistics to make it here. But we pride ourselves in being a very pastoral setting, very much timeless in Americana and in American history. It's a village of only about 2,000 residents, but for 75 years, we just celebrated our 75th anniversary last week. For 75 years, the Baseball Hall of Fame has been preserving baseball history every day at a time through artifacts like this bat that we took in to a major league achievement. Albert Pujols here in the U.S. just hit his 500th home run within the last month, and we have his spikes already on display from that achievement. So our job is about celebrating the game's great players, preserving its history so that there's a roadmap for scholars and for visitors and for fans of the game to see how the game has evolved, and then to connect generations so that the game gets handed down among baseball-playing fans. So we become a very important destination for baseball fans all across the world to celebrate this history of this game.
And very briefly, sadly, Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn passed away today. Is there going to be any type of memorial of the Hall of Fame for him, or how does that work when a Hall of Famer passes away?
It's a very sad day for us. We honor the individual by placing bunting on the museum that's in memorial. We do a floral arrangement that hangs on his Hall of Fame plaque. And this year at the induction ceremony, the last Sunday in July, we will take the time as part of the ceremony to honor his legacy with a special video tribute.
And when I was 16 years old, I saw Tony Gwynn get his 2,999 hit at Busch Stadium. So that was a very special moment in my life. And last question before we let you go. I've had Curt Schilling on my program before. Is it true that his bloody sock is in the Hall of Fame?
The sock is no longer. It was here for a while. It was a loaned item from the Schilling family. But we do have the spike that held the bloody sock. That still remains in the collection from the 2004 World Series.
That's awesome. All right. Brad Horde here on Louis Live. Mazal tov to you on the 75th anniversary of the Hall of Fame. Great stuff. Thank you for being on my program today, and be well. We will be in touch.
Oh, thank you. A great honor. Thanks so much.
Sure. Be well. Brad Horn, boys and girls, the spike is still there. I talked to Curt. I had to bring up the bloody sock thing. I just kind of said, did you ever think a clothing item of yours would be in the Hall of Fame? And so he talked about what happened. But the sock's not there. The spike is. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, a comedian from the comic strip. She'll be performing the comic strip in New York City on Friday. She'll be talking about the recap of the NHL Finals. Rangers lose in 5. Are New Yorkers bummed, or do they just not care anymore? We'll find out in a few minutes. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Great show so far. We're going to cap it off with style. My next guest will be appearing at the comic strip in New York City on Friday, and she's going to give us a recap and the mood in New York City after the NHL Finals. Please welcome back to Louis Live, Lorrie Brownstone. Lorrie, how you doing out there?
Hey, I'm okay, Ari. How are you?
Doing great, and a lot of people thought this was going to be the year for the Rangers when they got to the finals because it had been 20 years since they made it last time. They have Henry Lundqvist. They have a great team, Martin St. Louis, Matt Zuccolo, on and on and on. They lose in probably the closest 5-game series ever. 3 of the games went to overtime, 2 to double overtime. What is the mood of New Yorkers right now?
Well, they don't have a mood. They're ignoring it like it doesn't exist. They're just kind of sweeping it under the rug. They're kind of, walking around sulking a little bit, but there's absolutely no mood at all.
So,
they actually thought they were going to win. And as you know, I was actually in Israel during the finals for part of it. So it was. I don't know how you guys watch hockey over there. I had to get up at 2:00 in the morning to watch the games. But that said, it was the mood when I got back was very somber, like a month after a funeral kind of thing. And they're looking forward to next year. They think the series was close. I particularly don't think it was. I think LA had it in the bag all the time.
Wow.
New York did better than I thought they would. Going to the overtimes, they did, but I still think that we would have seen a better series with Chicago playing. Who, by the way, is my team, and actually went to 7 games, and a few of the games were over and went to 7. So I think all season we saw that the Eastern teams weren't as strong as the Western teams, and that's I think that was a big deal.
Well,
once Chicago lost against LA, I knew they would take the Stanley Cup.
All right, hold on. It wasn't that close. New York had a 2-goal lead twice, Game 1 and Game 2. So why are you saying LA had it in the bag? I hate to correct you, but because you're the hockey expert.
Well, I think they did. LA has the ability to come back.
Okay.
I mean, we saw it in we saw it with the San Jose Sharks. We saw it with many of the other teams. LA, you know what? They just seemed, and they had a lot of good luck too. They've had good luck through the series. I mean, okay, granted, any of those overtime games could have gone either way, but I think in general, LA outplayed New York. And I'm not saying. I mean, I'm shocked New York made it this far. Don't get me wrong. And I was actually rooting for New York, but I'm just not surprised that they lost in 5. I expected them to probably lose in 4. I would be surprised if LA let them have it just so they could win at home.
LA did win 3-7 games, Game 7s on the road. It's true they came back from 0-3 in the first round, so you do have a point that they do know how to turn it on. Anything that you saw that was particularly strange when you got back? Signs about the Rangers or people wearing weird clothes or anything strange? I know it's New York, everything's kind of strange there, but anything that really stuck out to you after the Rangers lost in 5 games?
When they lost, no. All the Ranger paraphernalia seemed to go away. It was crazy because when I got here, they hadn't lost yet. When I landed back from Europe and I landed here, they had won at home. So I saw, it was Rangers garb everywhere. Everybody was wearing a Rangers shirt. There were hats, boots, signs, "Go Rangers," everything. I even thought the guy in Times Square, who normally is, for those of you who know New York, he's known as the Naked Cowboy. He was even, I believe, donning some New York paraphernalia somewhere. But as soon as they lost, boom.
He was back to being naked again. He took out the Rangers shirt.
Exactly. He was naked again. There was no hockey stick, nothing.
Wow.
But it was really they didn't. It was almost like, well, we tried. Let's move on. There were so many sporting teams here. So they just move on to the next one. I think the Rangers did an incredible job this year with a brand new coach. First part of the season, it did not look good. If I had to put money on the Rangers going to the finals at say 1/3 of the way through the season, I would not have bet.
Yeah, and they traded their captain. They traded their captain, and I thought they overachieved. I mean, they really have no offense. They have no power play whatsoever. Lundqvist carried them on their back through the whole way through, and I felt so bad because that image where he gives up the goal in overtime, he's on the floor and he doesn't get up. This to me is the best goaltender in hockey, and it's been for years. And if the Rangers had any type of offense, he would have 2 or 3 rings, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think here is a problem that if you look at some of the teams, if you look at a team like Los Angeles, if you look at a team like Chicago, I'll just use those teams as an example, and also parts of the Blues teams, and I think we'll be seeing them a lot next year, up and coming. These teams have young, healthy players on long-term contracts, as compared to the Rangers. And I'm not saying the Rangers don't, but they don't have as many. So I'm not sure you're going to see, unless the Rangers do something to get some young, very strong players in for next year, I don't think you're going to see a repeat. I think you'll see a repeat of Los Angeles. Yeah. I think you'll see a repeat of Chicago.
Yeah, is there a reason why you want young, strong players in New York? Is there an outside thing?
What can I tell you? That's I was going to say hot players, but I think you would take it the wrong way. So
you mean the honest way? You mean the honest way?
Pardon me?
I would take it the honest way. I know what your mind is thinking.
The honest way. Well, let's take it both ways then. They need more hot young players and also good hot players on the ice too.
Yeah.
I think let's just face it, New York Rangers was the strongest team out of all of the teams here in New York, and I was actually disappointed when they lost. Very disappointed, not because I want the Rangers to win, but also, I wanted the hockey series to keep on going a little while longer. Not that the season isn't long enough. I believe the schedules are coming out in another 3 weeks for the fall, so it'll come by pretty quick again.
Well, for those in New York that are bummed out that the Rangers lost, they can laugh and pick up their mood by seeing you at the comic strip. Tell us when they can do that.
Well, I'm at the early show. Actually, it's called Gladys's Legendary Show. I'm on at 6 o'clock, early show this Friday night. And if you missed that, leave at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. I'll be at the Giggle Pit on the Lower East Side on Monday night here in New York.
All right, so 6 p.m., that's before Shabbos, so you can watch you laugh, then go to shul and have a dinner. So that's good.
Absolutely. And there's a shul just down the street. It's on the Upper East Side, so they can just walk over there. It's perfect. That's what I plan on doing.
That's New York for you. You got everything there.
Absolutely. But I did, I did one more thing about the series. Let's just cap this off. As you know, I'm originally from Canada. Just thought I'd let you know that the Rangers had, what was it? Let's see. I think the Rangers had a total of 14 Canadians. LA has a total of 14 Canadians on the team, and 5 players from the U.S. and then a bunch of some Czechs, whatever it is. But the Rangers only have 13 Canadians playing on the team. I think that's why they lost. They need more Canadians on their team.
There you go. So really, it's a victory for Canada at the end of the day.
Absolutely. When it comes to ice hockey, it always is. Just look at the Olympics a few months ago.
Oh, all right. Sticking to where it hurts. Lorrie Brownstone, everyone. See you at the comic strip at 6 o'clock on Friday. Thank you so much, Lorrie. Be well.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Sure. All right, Lorrie Brownstone, everyone. That concludes our show. Thank you for everyone for listening to the program. You can check out the podcast in about a few minutes. I want to thank all the guests who came on. Israel national soccer player Dinah Redman breaking down the World Cup did not give us a favorite yet. I do, however, like Brazil to take the whole thing. Amy Lawrence, the great Amy Lawrence from CBS Sports, telling us how the Spurs bench was so dominant in the NBA Finals, and they should be back strong next year. AJ Mitnick from Rishon Lezion, also editor at Sheridan Hoops, talking about where David Blatt may go. Could be an assistant with Steve Kerr in Golden State. Brad Horton, Vice President of Communication and Education at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, talk about why he likes Israel baseball memorabilia, and Kurt Schilling's shoe, or his piece of his shoe, is there as well. And we have the program in style, Lorrie Brownstone, who will be performing at the comic strip this Friday at 6 p.m. Talk about the mood of New Yorkers. Stay tuned for a lot of great programming, a lot of great stuff. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.